Welcome to tonight's Live Fully, Live Well webinar, Maximize Mobility, Achieve Independence with Mandy Rohrig, CanDo MS Program Consultant. My name is Maureen Martin, Programs Manager at CanDo MS. Live Fully, Live Well is a wellness program for people with MS and their support partners. Managing your health and wellness is an integral part of living well with MS. Live Fully, Live Well is a comprehensive program from CanDo MS and the National MS Society designed for people with MS and their support partners. Live Fully, Live Well covers topics affecting the whole family living with MS in order to strengthen relationships, increase understanding, and promote improved health and quality of life for the person with MS and their support partner. This program helps people living with MS and their support partners move from education to action. There are 3 aspects to this program: 6 one-day in-person programs around the country, 7 web-based videos introducing wellness topics, and webinars covering these wellness topics, which is what you're participating in tonight. All 3 of these programs can be integrated together or enjoyed separately to provide you with the resources, knowledge, and tools to create a personalized wellness plan. And this program is made possible by MS Active Source, which is sponsored by Biogen IDEC and Elan Pharmaceuticals. As I mentioned before, Live Fully, Live Well is a collaborative program between CanDo MS and the National MS Society. The vision of the National MS Society is a world free of MS. The Society helps people affected by MS by funding cutting-edge research, driving change through advocacy, facilitating professional education, and providing programs and services that help people with MS and their families move their lives forward. CanDo Multiple Sclerosis is an innovative provider of lifestyle empowerment programs for people with MS and their support partners. We are the start of a whole new way of thinking about and living with MS. CanDo MS empowers people to move beyond their MS by giving them the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence to adopt healthy lifestyle behaviors, actively co-manage their disease, and live their best lives. So a few housekeeping items before we get started. Mandy will address questions at the end of the presentation, and we encourage questions and comments throughout. To ask a question, you type your question in the chat feature, which is located on the left side of your computer screen. And to submit a question, you type in the small box that says chat. Also, many of you submitted questions when you registered, and Mandy will address those in her presentation tonight. And this presentation is being recorded and will be archived on CanDo MS's website. You can view this presentation again, or you can check out the other Live Fully, Live Well archived webinars. For those of you who are attending live tonight, you will receive an email tomorrow with copies of this PowerPoint presentation. So we have a great speaker lined up for tonight. Mandy Rohrig graduated from Nebraska Wesleyan University with the BS in Exercise Science and a minor in Spanish. Following her undergraduate education, Mandy received her doctorate of physical therapy from the University of Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha, Nebraska. She is a member of the American Physical Therapy Association's neurological section. Mandy currently works in an outpatient physical therapy setting where she specializes in the rehabilitation of individuals with neurological conditions, with a special emphasis in the treatment of individuals with MS, as well as balance and vestibular disorders. Mandy is certified in LSVT Global Big Treatment for individuals with Parkinson's disease. She is actively involved in the MS community in Omaha, regularly consulting and presenting among local MS exercise and support groups. She is currently serving on a committee for the National MS Society Professional Resource Center, and she's been a staff member for CanDo MS since 2007. So before we turn it over to Mandy, let's just do a quick poll tonight. So we'll just get a sense of who's on the call with us. So I just put a poll up on the screen, and it asks, please tell us about yourself. Are you a person living with MS? Are you a support partner? Are you a healthcare professional or other? So we'll just give a couple seconds to let everyone submit their answers. All right, so we have about 90% is a person living with MS, 7% is a support partner, about 2.5% a healthcare professional, and about 2.5% other. So it's a great group we have tonight. And with that, I will turn it over to Mandy.
Thank you, Maureen. Welcome to the Maximize Mobility, Achieve Independence webinar. I welcome you all and look forward to visiting you with all of you about mobility. We'll first start with a definition of mobility. Mobility is the quality or state of being mobile, according to Webster. The movement of people in a population. It can also be identified as movement of the body from one point to another point within the home or community. But clearly mobility means different things to different people, and as this presentation goes on, your individualized definition of mobility may evolve and may change and may become a different meaning to you after we're finished. So what are our presentation objectives? We have a lot of information to cover tonight. We'll identify mobility-related issues influenced by MS, identify the mobility team, explore and investigate common mobility concerns, and lastly, discuss the influence of support partners. So what are some mobility-related issues that MS can influence? We'll first start with just briefly discussing balance and coordination. The ability of muscles to time and sequence and coordinate properly can influence mobility, specifically walking and transitional movements. Similarly, strength, two different types of strength issues, primary weakness, which is weakness caused by the disease, or secondary weakness, which is weakness that is the result of decreased movement or deconditioning. That's muscle tightness, and that can cause decreased range of motion, which can also limit mobility in a number of different ways. A few other MS-related issues that can influence mobility include proprioception, or your ability to sense where your body is at in space and how it's moving, tremors, numbness, decreased sensation, some visual changes you may have experienced, difficulty walking. Fatigue influences mobility tremendously. And lastly, cognition. And cognition, if you have difficulty remembering movement or how to do a movement properly, that can influence how well you're able to move as well. So who can help us with solving some of these mobility issues? Well, there's a team of mobility professionals. The team helps identify the issues that the MS is influencing, and then together, the goal of the team is to emphasize improved quality of life. The goals that are set are functional and meaningful not only to the person with MS, but also with a support partner. So who are these mobility professionals? We have a nice laundry list of professionals, but the ones that I want to identify the most is the individual with MS, the captain, with the co-captain being the support partner. Physiatrist is one I want to highlight first. The physiatrist is an individual who is a physician who specializes in mobility or movement. Also, I want to identify the physical therapist and occupational therapist. Physical therapists work on more gross motor skills, such as walking and balance and general strengthening, whereas an occupational therapist work more with fine motor skills, adaptive equipment for activities of daily living, and fatigue-related issues. Now, the PT/OT physiatrist, they'll help kind of assist with most of the mobility planning, and they'll bring in other team members as they're appropriate. So what are some of the common mobility issues among folks with MS? Well, we're going to discuss transitional movements, walking, wheeled mobility, and lastly, the influence of support partners. So some types of transitional movements that we all encounter on a regular basis, but that may be problematic for individuals with MS include bed mobility, bathroom mobility, transitions between stairs, from floor to standing, from sitting to standing, and lastly, car transfers. We'll just discuss a few of these for now. The first that we'll discuss is bed mobility. Now, some ways that you can adapt the bed to make it easier for you include these rails. Clearly not a comfortable looking bed, but those rails are awfully sturdy and could be very helpful. And then Hoyer lift. Hoyer lift is for someone who's slightly more involved and perhaps need a little more assistance getting in and out of bed, and also getting in and out of chairs if necessary. Moving on to the bathroom. This is a nice image of a bathroom. The adaptations you can make in here to help with mobility include the grab bars that you see. This is a shower chair. A shower chair sits inside the shower and or tub, all four legs. A nice zero entry shower. These are all nice adaptations that you can do to reduce energy and improve safety and mobility within the restroom. But I want to take a moment to briefly comment about towel racks. You don't see a towel rack in here. I have a number of patients who will say that they often use towel racks instead of grab bars because they just need a touch. They don't need any more than that. And I respect that. They may just need a touch for balance. But I would encourage you to consider that one or two times that you might need more than a simple touch. And if you need more than a simple touch, you want the device that you're using for balance to support you if that incident would arise. So think about installing something slightly sturdier than a towel rack. Some other bathroom adaptations include raised toilet seats, and you can see by these images they come both with and without rails, or arm supports rather. And then you'll also see a transfer bench or a tub bench. And the tub bench allows you to sit here on the outside of the tub and then scoot inside. So if it's difficult for you to lift your legs into the shower, a tub bench is often a nice option. And then this is a commode, which can go pretty much anywhere in the house, but if bladder urgency is a concern, it's nice to have that commode convenient. Generally speaking, bedrooms and bathrooms aren't the times or the places to be practicing balance or to be challenging your mobility. I would encourage them to use these aids as an opportunity to conserve energy. You're not wasting energy on activities that are tedious and necessary, and you can save that energy instead for things that you really enjoy. Some other devices you can use to help with transitional movements, specifically between surfaces or chairs, is a lift chair, which I don't have an image of, or a transfer disc. And a transfer disc is this round circular device that you see here. And it pivots and it rotates. And when it rotates, it allows you to transition from one surface to another, whether it be a chair to a chair or a car to a wheelchair, without getting your feet tangled. It's kind of a nice, convenient device. And then last, floor to standing. I want to comment on floor to standing because floor to standing allows you to consult specifically with a rehab professional regarding the necessary methods that you can use in order to help you come from that position. I wouldn't venture out and try to do that dependently on your own. I would definitely consult with a PT or an OT to help with that. Okay, some other common mobility issues. We discussed transitional movements, and now I want to move forward onto walking. And I'm going to just give a moment because the slides are just delayed here. Appreciate your patience. Okay, walking. So some common concerns that we have regarding walking is often fall risk, fatigue, balance issues, leg weakness, and more specifically, foot drop. So the key is to work with your rehab team, specifically your physical therapist, and identify those specific situations when walking is challenged. It may be dark or dim light. It may be uneven surfaces. It may be just later in the day. But take into consideration the environment and all of the surroundings. Let's talk now about normal walking biomechanics. I want to take a brief moment to discuss this first. We're able to move forward and discuss more about gait deviations and ways that walking is challenged. So this is an illustration that shows the different phases of walking. So first, two phases, the stance phase and the swing phase. Now, stance phase is when the leg is contacting the ground. So in this situation, we're using our right leg as our reference leg. Okay? So when the right leg's making contact with the ground, we call that stance phase. When the right leg is not making contact with the ground, as in this image, we call that swing phase. And then this is a list of some of the major muscles that help with walking. Now, clearly I don't expect you to understand all of these muscles and how they work with walking. That's well beyond our time that we are allowed for this webinar. What I do want you to understand and appreciate is how these muscles are sequenced and fired. So in other words, these black lines indicate when these muscles are firing during the walking cycle. So it becomes really obvious that inadequate timing or even strength or perhaps range of motion during any one part of these phases can really challenge walking and really challenge an individual's ability to be mobile and move safely. So let's break this down just a bit more and talk more about the key muscles involved with walking. The first that we'll talk about is the stance phase. So again, the phase of walking when the leg is in contact with the ground. Initially, during the heel strike portion of walking, these muscles on the front of the lower leg are contracting. They kind of help to slow or decelerate the leg for the remainder of the stance phase. Secondly, during foot flat, the muscles on the back of the leg, or the calf muscles, plantar flexors, as well as the muscles on the front of the thigh, are contracting to make a very stable base so that you're able to stand on one leg briefly during walking. And lastly, during the toe-off phase, the ankle muscles, again the muscles on the back of the lower leg, as well as the quadriceps muscles, contracting again, but now with greater force in order to allow you to push off adequately to propel yourself forward during walking. And now with the swing phase. So initially during swing phase, muscles deep in the thigh, which aren't depicted here, but they're really way up here and very deep, allow the initiation of movement so that then the leg can start to swing through and lift off the ground. As the swing phase starts to end, the hamstring muscles, so the muscles again here on the back of the thigh, are contracting to allow the knee to bend a bit, and then the muscles on the front of the lower leg are contracting so that the toes don't drag. So very coordinated muscles, very coordinated movements to help us stay upright and mobile. Now, unfortunately, we do not have the capabilities to show videos on this webinar, but here are a couple links to some resources that you can go online and check out, and this will kind of reinforce what we just chatted about walking biomechanics. So you, as Maureen mentioned, you will get copies of these slides tomorrow, so feel free to reference these links. So what are some common biomechanical walking concerns among folks with MS? Foot drop. Foot drop is very common. It is notable during the swing phase of walking, so again, when the leg is being picked up off of the ground. Potential causes is when the muscles on the front of the lower leg are weak, or the muscles on the back of the lower leg are very tight, causing the toes to want to kind of point downward. Common compensations that we see, because the body is very smart and we're all naturally cheaters, compensations do occur. Not just going to allow ourselves to trip over our foot every time we take our steps. So body compensates often by hiking the hip, by circumducting or kind of taking the leg out into the side, by something we can call vaulting, which you go up on the tiptoes of the opposite leg. So in other words, if the right leg is the leg with a foot drop, you'll go up on the tiptoes of the left leg. And you can have a combination of all of the compensations listed previously. Another second common concern with walking is hip weakness. And this, unfortunately, is also notable during the phase of walking. Potential cause is hip flexor muscle weakness. So that muscle deep on the front of the thigh is weak and inadequate for initiating the swing, initiating the carry through of the leg. Compensations are very similar with the exception of the lateral trunk lean, which just means you'll tip a little bit to the opposite side of the weakness. Well, now that we know some common walking concerns, how do we move beyond these? How do we move forward? There are assistive devices and braces available for walking. And I want to encourage you to think of devices as being very flexible. You can use them at different times of the day, during different environments. Multiple devices are perfectly acceptable. But certainly consult with your rehab team before you purchase any of those. And the primary reason for that is because often insurances do have restrictions on mobility devices. And I don't want you to purchase a device that is not going to be appropriate or adaptable for your situation. So consult with your rehab team, PT/OT, before you move forward with those. Let's go ahead and start talking about a few. We'll first mention canes. Now canes, two major types, single point cane or a single point cane with a tripod base. I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide so you can see images of these. So single point cane is your traditional cane. Clearly, one single point. The tripod base, you can pop off that single point and put this on the bottom to give you a little more increased stability. Canes are generally indicated for individuals who just have a little bit of unsteadiness and a little bit of weakness. The disadvantages of them is they aren't as stable, and they can often contribute to a forward posture, a poor posture, because you really lean into that cane. If you're an individual, say you just need it when you're out and about in the community on grass or gravel, or maybe you went to the grocery store to shop, I would encourage you to consider a collapsible or a fold-up cane, because then you're able to just whip it out when you need it and then put it away when it's no longer necessary. Other types of canes that are available include walking or trekking poles, and then a small base or a large base quad cane. Walking or trekking poles are a little bit longer than a traditional cane, and I'll show you the image here in the next slide. So the trekking poles are on the right. Those are longer. They're very lightweight, portable. They look like hiking sticks. So people often like them because there's a less of an image of disability or mobility issues. But unfortunately, one of the disadvantages of this is that it's often a little bit difficult to coordinate. So you can use one or you can use two. It's perfectly acceptable to do it either way. The small base quad cane has 4 prongs, so it stands independently. It's more indicated for individuals who have one-sided weakness. Because all 4 prongs of the cane must be down at one time, it does interrupt that fluid motion involved with walking. So it may not be quite as smooth of a gait pattern as you would desire. And here's an image of some individuals using their assistive devices. As you can tell, this gentleman here doesn't have the best posture when he uses a cane. So just be aware with that over time that can contribute to some other mobility limitations. Be sure your devices fit appropriately for you. And then the gentleman up here with the trekking poles has that nice upright posture as well. Moving on from canes to talking about some crutches. Now, the traditional underarm crutches that you see go underneath the armpits aren't traditionally used for individuals with MS. However, another option is what we call a loft strand or a Canadian or a forearm crutch. It depends on what part of the country and where you're listening to us from. But they're indicated for individuals who, again, have some unsteadiness and some muscle weakness. I'll show you an image on the next slide. And those cuffs go around the forearm, which allow you to better distribute your weight through the entire arm, not just the wrist, which is advantageous. And people can also use their hands freely without having to set down the canes because the cuffs just stay relaxed around the forearm. So kind of a nice option. They have lightweight options. Another disadvantage, however, is they often are slightly difficult to coordinate. Another type of a crutch, or it could be considered a cane, is a newer device called a strong arm cane. And a strong arm cane is similar, kind of a hybrid of a floss strand crutch and a traditional cane. So let me show you a picture of this. So as you can tell, it kind of wraps around the forearm, but you still have stability at the wrist. It comes down to a single point, similar to how a traditional cane does. Very lightweight. People like it because the perception of disability is slightly less than if you would use more involved crutches like the loss strand crutches. Another disadvantage is it's a newer product, so there aren't as many providers, so check out that website if you're interested in the strong arm cane. Moving on to walkers. Most of us are pretty familiar with walkers, but we'll review some of the highlights. Two major types of traditional walkers: standard walker, which has no wheels, and then a two-wheeled walker, which just has wheels on the front. Advantages: they're lightweight, they're portable, they're very sturdy, they fold up nice, and fit in cars very nicely. So with a two-wheeled one, wheels are in the front, allow you to have a nice fluid gait pattern. You can walk along. However, a disadvantage of it is that it doesn't work very well on uneven surfaces, very plush carpet. So consider that if you're someone who enjoys being outside. The four-prong walker, the traditional standard walker, requires you to pick it up to move it. And for that reason, often it can place you at an increased risk for falls or cause a little bit of unsteadiness because you have to lift it up to advance it, and your risk for falling backwards might be slightly greater. A general disadvantage of walkers is that they are difficult to fit through doorways and hallways if you have an older home. Similarly, often stairs are difficult to navigate as well because you have to haul that up the stairs with you. So I would encourage you, if you have a home with stairs, maybe get a couple walkers, one for each floor. And of course, they come with many, many accessories. Another very popular type of a walker is a four-wheeled walker. And four-wheeled walkers, just like they're named, have wheels on all four legs. Variations: you can have retractable rear wheels, or you can have brakes that allow you to stop and slow the walker rather. And here's a nice image of a couple of the major types of walkers. So with the four-wheeled walker, you have this option to sit, which is why four-wheeled walkers are very popular among people. It's a nice smooth gait pattern. However, there is the opportunity for it to kind of roll away or get away from you. Similarly, you have to have good grip strength in order to stop that, to hold it, to not let yourself roll away. This is an advantage: the larger wheels if you like to be outdoors. And then the smaller retractable wheels kind of make it a little more difficult to be on those uneven surfaces. So take that into consideration as well. So generally speaking, when you're fitting a walker or a crutch or a cane, you fit that by resting your arms down at your sides, and the handles, these little guys, on all of the devices should come to the crease of your wrist. That will help to prevent the posture from suffering as a result. Moving on to another type of a walker. This is a newer type of a walker that was originally indicated for individuals with Parkinson's. However, I have a number of patients with MS who own it and like it and plan to continue using it. It's called a U-step. I'll advance the slide here for you. So a U-step, very similar. It has the seats, the wheels. You can maneuver very well. But the difference is you have to press these brakes to advance the device. Rather than with the traditional four-wheeled walker, you have to press the brakes to stop. So rolling isn't as likely, and maybe slightly easier to get in and out of chairs because you don't have to worry about the walker getting away from you. So U-Step, again, a relatively newer device, priced at around $150 for most insurances. If you pay over the counter, I believe it's around just under $600. So now let's move forward and talk a little bit more about specific devices that can help with specific gait deviations. So we are going to chat first about foot drop. So with foot drop, a number of different devices that we can use to help, and we'll go through each one of these. So just a reminder that foot drop typically occurs either because the muscles on the front of the lower leg are weak or the muscles on the back of the calf are very tight. So keep those two concepts in mind as we move forward. So foot drop devices for walking. The first one we're going to talk about is a foot-up brace. And a foot-up brace is indicated for those individuals with a very mild foot drop. It's an endurance-based foot drop. So in other words, you don't really notice that foot drop when you're walking short distances, but when you start to walk longer, then that toe starts to drag a little bit. Let me flip to the next slide, and you can see an image of this foot-up brace. So with the foot-up brace, you have that soft ankle support surrounding it, and then there is an elastic piece that attaches to a plastic piece that is tucked into the laces of your shoes. So this elastic piece right here is the piece that kind of helps to lift the foot. And this company recently came out with an option where you can go barefoot or you can wear sandals with it as well. So it gives you that nice variability. Now, in addition to the foot-up brace, I did mention something called a slider. And a slider is actually used in curling originally, but we often use it in the world of rehab so that you're able to reduce the friction underneath the toes as you're walking. So how this works is this plastic piece goes around the front of the toes, and this arch here anchors around the back of the heel. If you're not into pursuing curling devices and supplies on the internet, I completely respect that. And I would just encourage you to talk to your PT or encourage you to contact an orthotist, and they can often just simply re-sole the bottom of your shoe to have leather to reduce that friction, and that will help just as well. Some other foot drop devices for walking include the AFO, or the ankle foot orthoses. Two types of materials that we used for the AFO. One includes a plastic material, and then one includes a carbon fiber material. We'll first talk about the plastic material. So here are some images of the two types, primary types I should say, of plastic AFOs. Now plastic AFOs are typically customized. They're indicated for moderate to significant foot drop. So usually the PT will collaborate with an orthotist to help mold and shape this plastic to your foot. So first option is a solid ankle option. As you can see in this picture, no hinge, it's just a nice solid plastic piece. Doesn't allow for a lot of mobility, but it's often indicated for when you need limited motion at the ankle. The other type is a hinged AFO, and that hinged option gives us a little bit more fluidity of motion and allows us to control spasticity a little bit better. So two major types. Now, if you're not interested in the customized plastic ones, the other type is a carbon fiber material. And the carbon fiber material is more indicated for individuals who have more of a minimal to a moderate foot drop. The advantage is it's much cooler, much more lightweight than that plastic, but you do lose a little bit of the stability. Let me show you what these look like. Because they're not customized, they are over the counter, so they might not fit the foot quite as well. But again, in exchange for that, you get a nice energy-absorbing material and a more lightweight foot device. Many options and many shapes that you can find this one in as well. So other than the two AFOs, what else can we use to help with foot drop? Well, we are really excited because we have some functional electrical stimulation devices that can be used as well. So functional electrical stimulation devices are devices that use a mild electrical current to stimulate the nerves and the muscles of the lower leg to reduce the foot drop. So two major types that are on the market. The first is the Biomechanics L300, and the second type is the Walk-Aid. We'll first talk about the Biomechanics L300. Let me go ahead and advance the slide so you can see an image of this. So the Biomechanics L300 is operated by a mechanism called a heel switch. So in the shoe here, there is a switch, which is this in this picture. So when the foot contacts the ground, that heel switch sends a message to this cuff here that contains electrodes that stimulate the nerve and the muscle. So when the heel touches the ground, we don't need any electricity. We don't need any contraction of that lower leg. But the moment that that heel comes off, it sends a message back to the cuff that says, hey, we need to be able to pick up the ankle and foot for walking. So it communicates with that cuff and sends that stimulation. This device has been around for approximately 5 years. Unfortunately, it is not always covered by insurance. It's been my clinical experience that it's covered about 25% of the time, so not always covered, and it is awfully expensive. So this cuff is one portion of it, and then this last device used is a remote control that allows you to alter the intensity. So say, for example, at the end of the day and you're getting your foot drop gets progressively worse, you can bump up the intensity of the electricity to allow you to better pick up the foot. So different from the Walk-Aid in the fact that the Walk-Aid uses an accelerometer type of a mechanism. So an accelerometer is actually a sensor that senses the position or the angle of the lower leg and then uses that to send a message to the electrodes about stimulation and when it needs to be stimulated. The advantage is it's slightly less costly than the Biomechanics, and people can wear it without shoes. It's one piece, one device versus the multiple parts that are used with the Biomechanics. So personal preference, and you can certainly experiment, and I would encourage you to experiment with them both. And there's a nice image of the Walk-Aid device. Another comment I want to make, however, about the Walk-Aid is you do often have to go into the provider for adjustments if changes in your walking speed do occur. So keep that in mind if you're someone whose walking speed or gait pattern does change as the day goes on. So moving forward, let's talk about some devices now to help with hip weakness or lifting the entire leg. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of tools out right now, but the two that I want to talk about are the Hip Flexion Assist device and then the Biomechanics L300 Plus. And just to remind you, hip weakness occurs as a result of that weakness deep, the weakness involving the muscle deep in the front of the thigh. It doesn't initiate movement during swing phase. So Hip Flexion Assist device and then the functional electrical stimulation device, the Biomechanics L300 Plus. I want to first talk about that Hip Flexion Assist device. I'll show you an image because I think that will help a bit. The Hip Flexion Assist device has anchors around the waist here with a belt that's Velcroed on. And these are two bungee cord types of material that attaches and anchors to the shoe. So, and now I should comment too, they have an addition where there's a knee strap that goes behind the knee to help encourage a little bit more knee flexion. What it does is, the advantage of it is it does pick up the entire leg. So it's really valuable for individuals who have entire leg weakness, not just foot drop. Disadvantages, people don't often like the looks of it. It's often a little cumbersome to take on and off. However, can wear underneath your clothes, so keep that in mind. Less costly than some of the other technologies that are evolving for hip flexion weakness. Like this one. This is exciting because the Bioness L300 Plus was actually recently approved in the U.S. here in May of 2011. So we don't know a lot about it, but I'll give you the basic overview. What it is this cuff is coordinated with your Bioness L300 for your foot drop. And this has electrodes in it that helps to stimulate either the muscles on the front of the leg, the quadriceps, or the muscles in the back of the thigh, the hamstrings, and allows that to coordinate to help lift the leg during that swing phase of walking as well. Unfortunately, while it's exciting we have this new technology, it's not going to be released to physical therapy and I believe the public until September. But certainly contact Bioness if it's something that you're interested in. But keep them on your radar. It should be an interesting device to watch for. And the next device that's often used for general leg weakness, and this is again a very new technology, so I'll give you a very superficial overview about it, is the Honda Walk Assist device. And this is again a very new technology. And it's currently being tested, I think, in approximately 130 patients within the U.S. So very new, still in trial phases, but it's a motorized assistive device that helps to progress your legs forward and backwards. So kind of exciting. Keep that one on your radar as well. Now that we've talked about transitional movements and walking a little bit, I'd like to move on and comment briefly about wheeled mobility. So, wheeled mobility, talk about two types of manual wheelchairs here first. First is the transport chair, and then a traditional manual wheelchair. I'm going to advance to the next picture. Now, a transport chair, the difference between this and a traditional manual wheelchair is the lightweight nature and then also these rear wheels. They're smaller, which implies that you are unable to maneuver yourself or you're unable to move, progress the wheelchair independently with your arms. Whereas with this, the larger rear wheels allow that to happen. So transport chairs are very lightweight and are indicated for short mobility. Somebody has to propel you. Somebody has to push you. The manual chairs can be used for longer distances. However, if your arms do fatigue, it's not practical for somebody who's very active. So take that into consideration when you purchase. I would also encourage you to consider that if you get a transport chair, while it's very helpful, it does imply to your insurance provider that you are not walking, that you are not mobile. So if you ask for a transport chair to be covered by your insurance and then 6 months later you ask them to cover a walker to help you walk within the home, they may deny that. That may be a bit of a challenge just because this does imply that you're not walking and a walker clearly implies that you are walking. So keep that in mind and use your rehab team to help determine which device is best for you. Moving on to some wheeled mobility options. Two primary categories are scooters and then power wheelchairs. Now, scooters are indicated for individuals who are still ambulatory and walking, but endurance is an issue. So perhaps you use a cane or a walker at home, but then when you go out and about in the community and you're going to be on, the potential for long distances is possible, a scooter might be a good idea. They're very small, compact, very portable, and can often be disassembled and taken apart to fit easily in the trunk of a car. So here are some nice images of scooters and power wheelchairs. So again, you see the scooter. Oh, it's very lightweight, portable, not a ton of support over here. And then our two more power mobility options have a little more support, smaller turning radiuses, more options, including joysticks and tilt in space and reclining and different foot plates and things. explaining all of these features and the potential that exists with power mobility is well beyond the opportunity that we have to visit about during this webinar. But I would encourage you again, talk to your physical therapist, have them collaborate with the OT, collaborate with the wheelchair vendors to find what specific adaptations for a power wheelchair are most appropriate for you. And often, again, unfortunately, insurance does have limitations, so use the knowledge of your vendors and your rehab team. Now, I can't go a webinar without commenting about exercise mobility and multiple sclerosis. So I won't go into too much detail about this because we are fortunate to have a webinar coming up this fall specifically about exercise and multiple sclerosis, but some general guidelines and general comments. Please do not waste valuable energy on exercises that are not helping you improve your mobility. So in other words, please don't be doing bicep curls and arm exercises if your goal is to improve walking. While arm exercises are valuable, they're not helping improve the functional goal that you have. So work with your rehab team, specifically your physical therapist, to devise the exercises that are best for you. Primary components of an exercise program that you can use to help improve your mobility are listed there. So continuing with our theme of gait deviations and issues, mobility limitation issues, we're going to use foot drop as an example. And to remind you, foot drop is either caused by weakness on the front of the leg or tightness in the muscle on the back of the calf, or the calf muscle. So this is showing an example of two different ways to stretch your calves. If you can keep your calves loose, it might help you manage your foot drop a little bit better. The way to manage it through flexibility. Now, a way to manage it potentially through strengthening is through a sit-to-stand exercise. So rather than just sitting and tapping your toe to keep the muscles on the front of your lower leg strong, I would encourage you to practice coming from sitting to standing. I say this because every time you come from a seated position to a standing position, the muscles on the front of the lower leg must be activated, must contract in order to allow that movement to happen. So very functional exercise that also can address improving your mobility as well. But I would always encourage you to pursue the upcoming webinar, Live Fully, Live Well, about exercise and multiple sclerosis this fall for additional information and more details. So moving forward, we have all of this information. How do we move forward to use the best information we've acquired today for our situations? I would encourage you first off, involve your support partner, to have a dialogue with your support partner, have a dialogue with your healthcare team, and identify those situations where mobility aids are appropriate and the help is needed or wanted. For example, an individual with MS may or may not want help on and off the toilet with a mobility aid. But maybe they don't want help getting in and out of the chair. They want to use that opportunity to practice or be empowered or feel like they can have that independent mobility. So identify those mobility priorities together and create an environment that best suits everyone involved. Common phrases that I hear regarding reluctance towards mobility aids, and I completely respect these. But I would encourage you to think of mobility aids as not what they're taking away from you, but rather what they're giving you, what they're allowing you to do that perhaps you weren't able to do before. Think about what it may help you to achieve either with less effort and improve your independence. And that's truly outsmarting your MS, is using those mobility aids to your best advantage. Some other benefits of mobility aids include reduced burden on the support partner. So truly, support partners worry and they care. They really care about you. And agreeing on times and places where safety might be challenged or compromised and a mobility aid may be appropriate not only empowers the person with MS, but also helps the support partner feel more comfortable with that individual moving around. Also, it does help with energy conservation. Again, energy isn't wasted on activities that don't bring joy to your life. So getting in and out of the tub, use those mobility aids. Use that energy for later to do something you really enjoy. And lastly, be open to options that may help improve your movement. So consider what a mobility aid may do or allow you to do now that you were unable to do without a struggle before. So for example, maybe going to a concert or a sporting event was really challenging because of the extreme walking that was involved. Maybe using a scooter might allow you to go to that event and enjoy it without the worry and without the struggle to get to and from there. And enjoy and emphasize what that mobility aid gives you, not what it takes away. Very, very important. So there are our objectives that we spoke about today. Covered a lot of information. And I hope you've all gathered and kind of have a new perspective about how to maximize your mobility and achieve your independence. That you can still complete activities, but you are doing them perhaps in a different manner than you did previously. Celebrate, achieve, and enjoy your mobility potential. Use that team to your advantage and maximize what you can do. Live the best life that you can, both with and without the aids as they are appropriate. And movement is a treatment and a method of management for MS. The disease wins if it keeps you from doing what you want to do. I would encourage you to control what you can control. We understand that we can't control the path of the MS or the disease process itself entirely. However, we can control our reaction to it and how we're going to manage it, and using mobility aids is one of those ways. So, in summary, you can maximize your mobility and you can achieve your maximal independence. So I wish you all well as you pursue that, and right now I'll take the opportunity to answer any questions or comments that anyone might have.
Great. Thanks, Mandy. That was a great presentation. We'll start out. We had a couple questions and comments about people's fatigue and how fatigue can impact their mobility. If you can just talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Fatigue is challenging, and I'll just kind of answer this generally because unfortunately I don't know your individual situations. But mobility aids can be used to help conserve the energy and manage the energy. And again, use that concept of if I can conserve my energy by using a mobility aid now, then maybe later on in the day I'll have that energy that I just banked because I saved it using a mobility aid for later on, and then you can do something you really enjoy and really want to do.
Great. Thank you. And I'll just the next one is just a comment, but I thought it was useful. And this person says, you can't always tell if it's working, but using doing yoga helps him with his mobility issues.
Wonderful comment. Yes, that can help with flexibility, balance, all of those wonderful things that yoga offers. So good work, whoever's doing the yoga out there and who was ever interested in trying.
Great. And this next question is a little bit specific, but I thought maybe you could answer it in a general way. And I think it came up when you were showing the pictures of the individuals using the cane and one person had poor posture. And it was when using a cane, how do you measure the height so that your posture doesn't suffer?
Yeah, very good question. So what I would encourage you to do is when you're standing upright with good quality posture and your arms are just resting at your sides, the top of the cane or the place where your hand's going to go should come at the crease of your wrist. So that top should be at the crease of your wrist. If that's where it's at, then you know you're in about the right place and you won't have to worry about postural repercussions. Good question.
Great. And we had a couple questions about foot drop, and I know you spoke a little bit about this, but can foot drop be limited or fixed with physical therapy?
I think it can be managed with physical therapy. So I think specific exercises that can help minimize and manage the foot drop, and then also some of these newer functional electrical stimulation devices. I've also seen some really amazing things happen in the clinic with use of those. So those devices help to retrain those nerve pathways and the communication between the brain and the nerves of the lower leg. So sometimes that repetition and that exercise in combination with the functional electrical stimulation can help to manage that and even reduce it. In some situations I've had success with that. So good question.
Great. And the next question asks, are there any tips you can give for helping support partners convince the person with MS that using their mobility tools isn't giving up?
Ooh, very good question. It's a challenging question. And I think it's an opportunity for the individual with MS to try to educate your support partner and try to tell them how much better it makes you feel, how much safer you feel using these mobility aids, and how, again, you're outsmarting your disease. You're trying to make it more manageable and trying to live your best quality of life. And if that's helping you move forward, by all means, go for whatever device is going to help you most.
Great, thanks. And we have time for one last question. And if you can just talk about exercise to help with balance, which would then help with their mobility.
Yeah, there are a variety of different exercises you can do to help with balance and that you can do to help with your overall mobility. And I would encourage you to consult with a PT for a very individualized program, because just like you would do strength training for the muscles in your legs, or you would do flexibility exercises to improve the extensibility of your muscles, you have to do weight training for your nervous system. You have to do strength training for your nervous system. So repetitions of balance exercises that help to address mobility limitations, for example, maybe turning when you're walking, or balance exercises when you're backing up to the restroom, to the toilet, are all good things to practice, and identify those with your rehab team. So good question.
Great. Thanks, Mandy, for taking those questions. And do you have any final thoughts to leave the participants with tonight?
Thank you for participating in the webinar. I hope you all gained some valuable information from it and kind of gave you a spring options with mobility. Thank you all, and we look forward to you joining us for some of the upcoming webinars. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Mandy. And thanks to all the participants who joined us for this webinar. The next Live Fully, Live Well webinar is on August 25th at 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic is Managing Fatigue with Julianne Hansen-Zlatev, an occupational therapist and CanDo MS program consultant. And you can register for this webinar on CanDo MS website, which is mscando.org. As soon as this presentation is over, you will see a survey appear on your computer screen. So please take a moment to complete the survey and help us continue to improve our webinars. We value your feedback and input. So thanks again. This program is made possible by MS Active Source, which is sponsored by Biogen IDEC and Elan Pharmaceuticals. Thanks.